Welcome to Friday night's video in our second Master Series. I do believe this is the 27th video in our second Master Series and the first video on level meters. So basically, I've made up, I have a bunch of notebooks. This is one of my notebooks on leveling systems. But for the most part you've got a couple different systems. You've got DBFS, DB full scale, that is telling you that 0 dB is maximum loudness, and then you start getting clipping, whereas in DBSPL, this is in the digital realm, but in DBSPL, 0 is the minimum level you'll be able to hear before you start hearing sound, and no maximum level defined. And whereas DBFS, there's no minimal level actually defined. So other than that, when we start getting into level systems, we will talk about some of the things inherently apparent about them or inherent in them and things we have to look at. But I always try to push you to do more reading and more studying and to really study about what things are and what you're dealing with. So I really push that on my channel. But we've trying to take that last Master Series and just get in a little bit deeper to help take you to that next level of being that master audio engineer. So for the most part, what we're really going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at a couple different things. The first thing we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at level meters. Level meters are a pretty simple concept. When we get in here and we start looking at level meters, it's not that difficult of a concept. You have things like VU meters, and we're going to talk about where these can be important and when they're going to be very useful to you. And we're going to talk about some other level meters, like this level meter here. This is just the basic level meter in my studio that we're going to actually look at it and go from this one, because these are the most basic systems we need to deal with. We'll be dealing with things like peak and hold time, RMS. We'll be dealing with things, we'll talk about the K20 system, the K14 system, the K12 system, and the R128. We'll talk about loudness units and loudness units full scale, because all of these systems can have pertinence in different situations. Now, the issue here most of the time that I see with leveling systems is that two things. First of all, I see, we talked about the leveling systems and seeing level issues with the spectrogram and with the oscilloscope and how useful they are to get a lot more detailed information about levels besides other things we talked about. And you mastering that is very pertinent for you becoming that next level master audio engineer. The next system that's going to be of most importance to you is going to be your basic leveling systems. Now, talking about the things that I've mentioned about just the basic leveling systems, the most important aspects of this to really make them become more and more useful to you is to make you a better engineer. So because two things. First of all, whatever in your processing you're doing, editing, or anything you might be doing throughout the entire production, having a better understanding of what that is, these systems all will help you, including the leveling meters. The second thing is sometimes leveling meters will help you get things ready for things that are happening in the future, so that not everything is just important for this moment, that it might look to be okay now, but as you get better, your leveling meters will help you go, no, I'm seeing this issue and this level or this RMS or this loudness thing, that's going to be a problem later. I learned from experience. So from knowledge and wisdom and experience and experimentation. So we're going to point out some things that it's going to show you. And the other things that are really important is, as usual, I try to point out in Master Series 2, number 3, and number 5, we talked about critical listening, accurate listening, and then we talked about every moment in time is important, so that these leveling systems, I see so many people, this might sound funny to you, but these are wonderful leveling systems, and I see people use them not at all. I see them use their leveling systems as much as they do their oscilloscope. Why? Because they've got little things bouncing around all over the place that doesn't seem to have any value to them. It's like, well, this one's going up here and then down there, and it's down here and then it's down like that, and then it's up here again, and then it's down. I don't know, it's doing something. And then they turn it off, and then they go listen to it and look at the waveform, and they're all done. and which is throwing away their eyeballs again to some extent. You can see a lot of information on the waveform when you're looking at it through here. That's very obvious. But you get more detailed information here about your levels. So, and in different situations, whether you're dealing with one track and doing something to it, or you've got a couple different tracks with a couple different meters out and looking at their values and how they're correlating and looking at their sums, these meters are all going to be really helpful at you seeing you at use for you to see, excuse me, seeing some very basic information that's going to be very useful. Now, one of the key factors here that I really tried to point out in number 5 was that every moment in time is important. So that, let's say this is a small chorus and you've got 10 flags across here because you was hearing things, you were listening, or you're not only are you listening, you're looking for issues and correlating between different tracks and whatever you might be doing. That, starting with one track and then 2 tracks mixed together and so on and so forth, that you're marking out issues that may be a problem. As you go along, you maybe, especially when you're mixing, you might have one track and then, you've flagged everything. And then when you start mixing 2 together, when you've gotten to that point, then you're flagging things that are happening that, you put a bunch of different flags up here that are issues when you're mixing them together. This comes to making every moment in time important. And your level meters are really going to help you because when you come to this moment in time, it's real obvious when I'm looking at this track that these levels are changing. So, how important that's going to be to you from the recording phase to the end of the production is going to really be dependent on what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it, obviously, right? But at some point, that's going to be important, very much so, correct? And those levels are changing a lot over a very short period of time. That's 3 bars. And you look at how much that is changing over that small amount of time. That is a lot of things happening as far as dynamics and as far as leveling. So, you marking that out and starting to really see that, bam, right here, right there, it's up too loud. It's up too loud, it's up there. I got to bring that down or something. Or it's not loud enough. Or it's Or I'm watching, does that make sense? Sometimes these median levels, as an example, are fluctuating too much where you're like, I don't want it fluctuating that much unless I'm seeing a dropout. I'm seeing a dropout right here. Okay, I understand I'm going to drop for just a second there. I've seen it, trying to correlate the level meters with what's going on your track to try to help you see when that's going to be important. And then again, when you start mixing 2 tracks together, that their sum, their individualities, and their sum are going to have a lot of importance as you're going through and checking these things flagged out, if you're going to go to that next level and really see that every moment in time is vastly important to make your production as good as possible, that all of a sudden this level meter trying to tell you some information just right here, and this is 1/2 a bar, is very important. What is happening right there because of its individuality, or what's going to happen when it's mixing it in with another track, or how it is basically some issues that from experience are going to be causing a problem in the production itself, that it's dropping out too much, it's getting too loud, it's fluctuating too much, there's too much dynamics. Sometimes you get into peak metering, and if you're looking at peak metering, that you've got a lot of dynamics happening in a production. So you're really looking at these peaks hitting and how much they fall off and where is that basically fluctuating in between, so you can really see how much dynamics, because I'm seeing that it's, let's say it's dropping from here down to here. So that's basically the peak dynamic range, that throughout that short little teeny section, it's jumping between there and there. That's quite a bit, between -6 and -2 dB. That's a lot, bro. Does that make sense? Which can be fine on an out front vocal. It might not be fine for something else because it needs to be tightened up a little bit, because otherwise the mix will just sound it won't sound coherent, because it's like instruments are dropping below each other and above each other too much, to where you're not really getting a good consistent. I'm hearing the bass, bam, bam at that level. I'm hearing the piano, bam, bam, bam at that level. I'm hearing dropouts and things are fuzzying up and masking each other and . and on and on and on. And your level systems, you just your basic leveling meters here, instead of looking at a oscilloscope and trying to pick out a ton of information, or looking at a spectrogram and picking out, a bazillion bits more of, information that you don't really need, when dealing with that dynamic issue, that this system is awesome to try to help you define the dynamic range that you're allowing it to fluctuate between in this area for what you're doing with it in the mix. And the same with your medians. So if you have your medians, I'm just giving examples that you've got your medians are fluctuating too much, where you really want this to be a little more consistent. How much compression or limiting, and you might have to squish it up a little bit, trying not to cause any distortion, saturation, but you definitely want the dynamics tamed quite a bit there to keep this a little bit more tamed. And up in here, you can see that this is fluctuating some. It's fluctuating in between 2 dB here. So that'll give you an idea in that median that the fluctuation up in here, it's fluctuating fluctuating dang near like 4 dB. That's twice as much fluctuation happening in the dynamic area than it is happening in the median area. And what does that mean? Is that going to be okay? Now, I know that trying to point those things out, to some point, you can just be going, that's ridiculous, dude. I'll just be going crazy. I'll never, ever get anything done like this. And it's like, well, you will as you get better. The issue is that as you start to understand this, that you aren't going to be sitting here staring at your level meter all the time going, and then it's a half a dB right there. You're not building a dang rocket ship. It might be important, so don't. I was slap myself in the head because it might be important. You might be going, nope, that's like a half dB fluctuation. Okay, any more than that is unacceptable, bro. I'm an audiophile. Cool, bro. And you might come out with some really good stuff. You remember, so in some of the videos I made in my last series, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's like, in this fluctuation, you really getting in there. But as time goes by, you will sit there and glance over there and go, there's a problem? Or I'm hearing that, or da-da-da, or I'm seeing that, da-da-da. And no, I've got like a 3 dB fluctuation. I'm thinking about the next tracks that are going to be on top of it, going to be underneath it. What's going to be on after when I mix it or when I process it? What kind of process am I going to be doing next? Is that going to be okay? Or is that I want less fluctuation, or da-da-da, because of the type of editing or processing I'm doing, or what I'm doing with the ADSR, or pop. All these things, this system is going to help you make a good decision, because then you can sit there and go, well, I know that's fluctuating, and that's fine. How much is that median there? Well, I don't know. It might be, I don't know. Of course you don't know. You don't have a level meter out. Your earballs ain't going to tell you that. Your earballs ain't going to tell you that. You might get really good and be able to hear that pretty well, but until you get to that level, trust me, you still want to pull out your level meters because it's helpful. Sometimes you might not catch things. And, what's your dynamic peak fluctuation? What is your peak? What's happening with your peak? At what exactly level is that? And depending on how good of a mixing engineer, it's going to be real important that that's hitting right at 3 dB, bro. If you're that good of an engineer, I'm telling you, you're going to be concerned about that. And you're going to be concerned about the dynamic fluctuation in there, and if that's going to be pertinent, okay, with that track you're working on because of its place in the mix, that's going to be of immense value and immense importance. So I know that sounds like a mouthful again, but I'm really trying to point out that these meters are invaluable, and we'll get into it more and more as we go. We're going to do a short series now on leveling meters. The simple thing a level meter is, the information going to help, and how it can really help take complex things that are happening, especially in music productions, are very complex. The dynamics, the ranges, the peaks, all kinds of things that are happening, that these simple tools can help you get to that next level by utilizing them well and going, oh, I see that, I see what that's telling me, and yeah, that's going to be okay, and bop, 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 helping you make better decisions so that you're using your earballs and your eyeballs so that, like I really tried to point out in the last couple, on spectrometers and oscilloscopes, the very much importance of you getting them out, keeping them open, and utilizing them. Get used to seeing the music so that these things that we're going to be talking about become real apparent to you and real obvious. So as you're hearing things that you get used to visualizing it. So peace, hope, love. I certainly hope you enjoyed this intro to level meters, and I'll see you in the next video.